Hey folks, Coach Mike here. Today I want to share with you a personal story that I've experienced with intermittent fasting and the surprising results that I got in that process. Let's get to it. So today's video is going to be pretty short, but I want to share with you, I've written a blog about intermittent fasting, and I want to share with you a story about what I did with intermittent fasting, how it came into my life, and what I used it to how I used it to lose weight. About 8 years ago or so, one of my neighbors was sharing with me about how when she skips breakfast, she loses additional weight. Initially, I didn't know anything about it, so I was like, well, of course, because you're skipping breakfast, you're eating less calories. Come to find out, she was actually eating the same amount of calories, she just condensed it between lunch and dinner time. So she basically had about an 18-hour fasting window, about a 6-hour feeding window. So fast forward a couple years, I retired, I became a health coach, and I started really studying about fasting and intermittent fasting. This video is really not about the science of intermittent fasting. There's some information on my blog that talks a little bit about the science and the importance of insulin and how it rises or falls, etc. Feel free to read that. That link to the blog will be in the description of the video below. I want to share with you about my personal story with fasting, and that is a few years later. So January 2017, I went plant-based, whole food plant-based, and I'm about 80 to 90%. I definitely have meat, but not very often. I have processed foods, but not very often. But for the most part, I'm fueling my body with healthy plant foods. In the first 6 months, I dropped about 23, 25 pounds. I started about 178 and I got down to 155. And I was pretty excited about this. I didn't know it or do anything with intermittent fasting at this particular time. A couple years after I started my journey with plants, I had heard about intermittent fasting. I became board certified in lifestyle medicine, so I was studying a lot of the journals, and I decided to do an experiment myself on intermittent fasting. At the time, I was eating a big breakfast of oatmeal. I was also having a hearty lunch, which usually was a salad with brown rice or something of that extreme, and then also whole food plant-based healthy meal. I was having snacks throughout the day, which were primarily fruits or vegetables. So when I tried this experiment, like I said before, I was about 155 pounds. I was at my college weight, so I was pretty happy with the fact that I lost about 23, 25 pounds on a plant-based diet. So with my intermittent fasting experiment, I decided to skip breakfast on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And lo and behold, about 6 weeks later, I dropped down to 143 pounds. I was extremely surprised. And really, I was eating a lot of food. It was just between lunch, and I'd have an extra lunch actually after that because I was still hungry. And then I'd have a dinner, right? So I lost a ton of weight doing intermittent fasting. That's not to say that everybody should do intermittent fasting. That's not to say that I think you should do intermittent fasting, but for me, it really worked because I was getting about the same amount of calories. I just had a shortened feeding window, roughly between 12 or 12:30. If I waited till 12:30, I was very, very hungry. And then I went off course, was eating throughout those 4 or 5 hours, and then at dinner I would finish up about 6. So my feeding window on those 3 days a week was about 6 hours, and my fasting window was about 18 hours, which is pretty common. Last couple things I want to mention is if this is something that you're considering, and I mentioned this in the blog as well, I would recommend that you are well prepared for when you come off of your fast. First of all, of course, talk to your doctor, consult with your physician. But if you decide to go this route, make sure that you have healthy plant-based foods when you're coming off of your fast. It can be a slippery slope. And one of the challenges that I have with my clients that I coach is when they get to noon, if for example, they're skipping breakfast, when they get to noon, they're so ravenous, they're so freaking hungry that sure enough, they have a challenge with eating or making healthy decisions for themselves to support themselves for their better health. And they sometimes totally blow the fact that they fasted for 18 hours. So think about that if that's something you're considering as well. If you'd like to talk with me about it, of course, my link and my information is in the description. I'd be happy to consult with you and talk to you about it as well. And then fast forward to today. So remember, when I was 6 months into my whole food plant-based journey, I was weighing 155 pounds. probably for the last 3 or 4 years, consistently, I've been intermittent fasting. I pretty much wake up every morning, have a big glass of water, have 1 cup of black coffee, and then when I get to around 12 or 12:30, I'm pretty hungry. I have a massive bowl of oatmeal and fruit, which has got walnuts and cinnamon and coconut and blueberries and blackberries and raspberries, strawberries, banana, and I'm not kidding, it's a massive amount of food. I batch cook it, and I have it the next day as well for lunch. I just heat it up in 3 minutes. And then, of course, I have a healthy dinner. And in that window, I'm eating fruits or vegetables or what have you. But for the most part, that holds me over and I'm just fine. Sometimes at night, I do get hungry, but not usually. So I guess what I want to say is my weight today, having gone from 178 to 155 to 143, has been consistently for the last 3 years or so, has been consistently around 148 to 152 consistently. So that's just my journey. That's anecdotally, that's what's going on with me. I wanted to share that with you. And that oatmeal piece that I have, I pretty much have every day for lunch. It's just consistently the way I roll, and it's rolled oats, and it's incredibly healthy as well. So that's my story. If you like this, feel free to share it. Please feel free to like it. Click that little thumb. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe. Again, my name is Mike Thomas. I'm a board-certified health and wellness coach. I help people lose weight in the process of incorporating more plants into their diet. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. God bless.